So hello guys, and welcome to another video, and I have been playing Emio the Smiling Man Famicom Detective Club for a little while now, and I think it's really good so far. So this is technically a second impressions video, first impressions of the full game, because I already did a first impressions video of the first chapter of the game back when I played the first part of the demo. But I have even more thoughts on it now that I've played through the end of chapter 5, and I'm enjoying this game even more than I did then. Like, I already knew that I was going to be interested in the story, and I am so glad that I went ahead and got the full game and played it more. I didn't even play through chapter 2 and 3 when I bought the full game. I just played those yesterday and kind of got up to chapter 5 now, but I already had an intuition that this game was going to be great. Even though I haven't played many text-based games or haven't really played many Japanese adventure games before, despite that, I still had a feeling that this was going to be great, and I was right, because I am absolutely enjoying this so far. But I first want to talk about the value of bringing back a legacy series like this. Despite the low sales of the Famicom Detective Club remakes, they made this game anyway. Like, I think the remakes didn't even sell 1 million, which is very unfortunate, because from what I've heard, those remakes were pretty good, even though I haven't played them yet. And it was great that they finally brought over the Famicom Detective Club series to the West after, like, over 30 years of just exclusively being in Japan. And it genuinely feels like they made this game out of passion. Because obviously it wasn't due to, like, the sales of the remakes. They were already set on making this game, so it feels like it was genuinely made from a place of like creativity, because Sakamoto finally had an idea of how he could continue this series. Like, even after 35 years, like, the idea finally popped up, and it proves that no series is truly dead, and there can always be ideas that can eventually pop up. Which is really nice to know, because there's a lot of Nintendo series out there that are still kind of dormant, despite the fact that Nintendo is bringing back a lot of series. Maybe a series like Star Fox will come back eventually, once there is an idea besides retreading Star Fox 64, but we'll have to see. But in the case of Emio, I'm really glad they finally settled on something really interesting, because for the case of this game specifically, Emio was an excellent idea. I really like what they were doing with this game so far. And one more thing to point out before I kind of get into this game a little more is that this is, interestingly, technically the first M-rated game that was ever developed in-house at Nintendo. I think that's pretty interesting. Even though this game was partially developed by mages, it's still, like, Nintendo EPD was still, like, one of the co-developers and had, like, a lot of say and, like, kind of influence on this game. So it's technically was partially developed in-house. So I just think that's pretty interesting. Like, they have published M-rated games before, like Eternal Darkness or Bayonetta, but never actually developed one in-house, so I think this is pretty interesting. But with this game, I feel like I was kind of misinformed at first. Even though I was really always interested in this game, like, even when it was, like, revealed to be a Famicom Detective Club game after the whole Emio teaser, I was still interested in it. But I didn't think it was going to be quite as good as it actually was, because I thought it was a visual novel. Everyone on Twitter kind of gaslit me into thinking it was just a visual novel, like something that's very niche and not very interesting. But that isn't the case at all, because it is not a visual novel. a lot of people make this mistake for games like this. It's a Japanese adventure game. This genre dates back to the 1980s, and it's connected to a lot of other text-based adventure genres, like some from Japan and some from the West. And it has a lot of interactive problem-solving elements. And Ace Attorney is also a part of this genre. While visual novels aren't inherently bad, I feel like people were using that genre classification as an insult when talking about this game, like back when it was revealed to be a Famicom Detective Club game. And it is also very misinformed to call it one as well. And while I can understand the disappointment of this not being a new IP or a horror game, I think it's a bit unfair to write this game off as being just another boring visual novel, but it's actually really interesting, and it's a part of Nintendo's legacy franchises. Like, I feel like a lot of people saying that aren't really familiar with Famicom Detective Club and just kind of judge it based on what they've seen so far. So, yeah, I just think it's pretty misleading how people were treating this game, and it was definitely vastly undersold, I would say. But with my thoughts on the game so far, I think it's really interesting. I don't have a ton of experience with these types of adventure games, but despite that, this game is really good. The closest thing I've played to this are games by Telltale, like the Back to the Future game and Minecraft Story Mode. And this game is actually kind of appealing to me in a similar way, despite being a little different from that genre. I also have Ace Attorney, like the trilogy, downloaded on my Switch, but I still need to get around to playing it, but I'll probably enjoying it. I'll probably enjoy it, since I've been really enjoying Emio. But one thing that I love about this game is the captivating story. I wasn't sure that I would like it this much. I was a little worried that, like, reading through all the text would just feel kind of tiring. Like, at that point, why wouldn't I just read a book? But no, it actually has some value to it, because it like, I'll get into the interactive elements in a little bit, but the way it's paced is just really good. It's definitely really clever overall, and it definitely kind of keeps me engaged here. What's keeping you engaged? The fact that it revolves around an urban legend is really interesting. It almost has a creepy, horror-like angle to it, despite not being a horror game. I feel like there's a lot of genres that sometimes take elements from horror. I know Paper Mario does this a bit, and kind of uses it to enhance the story overall. And I think that's partially what Emio is doing here. Like, they make it very mysterious and kind of, like, scary and creepy with the Emio figure, and with, like, the fact that there's a murderer going around, killing, like, teenage girls and putting on these, paper bags with a smile drawn on it. It's really, really creepy concept, but it's really interesting, and it's definitely adds a lot to the mystery of this, and like the whole detective and solving these cases and everything. So I really like it overall. I really like the angle and the vibe that this game has going on with it. I also really like the characters in this game, because there's a lot of depth to them, and they're just really interesting overall. Like, Ayumi, like, she was even planned for Smash originally. Actually, I think she should be added to Smash 6. I think that would be pretty cool. I know a lot of Smash fans would be really disappointed about that, because it would come across as another anime-like character, but I think it would be pretty interesting. But the protagonist is also interesting as well, despite it being the character that you play as, which isn't always the most interesting character in a game. I still really like him, and like he definitely adds quite a lot to the story, despite him being the one that's kind of like doing everything and basically asking everyone else the questions. But yeah, and then finally, Junko Kuze is also a really interesting character as well. Sorry if I butcher the pronunciation of these names, but I think she's also a really interesting character. She works with like the police department and comes across as very stern and serious and kind of gets angry easily, but she also has a more sensitive side to her, which is pretty interesting, and is also involved with one of the major parts of the case that, like, the protagonist has been looking into. And also with that, uncovering the evidence and clues about the murder is very interesting. Some of the details and stories that branch off from the main case, like, such as the thing that I was kind of referring to, with, Junko Kuze's, brother, Makoto Kuze, is also really interesting. Like, I think it was in the third chapter, which was also a part of the demo, that the protagonist was looking into that specific part quite a lot, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And there's also some very funny and out-of-pocket moments. Even though the story is serious, there are little moments that are, like, a kind of funny and out of pocket. Like, that definitely helps the pacing of this game and kind of adds a little bit of depth to it, and adds some variety as well, with like kind of like your interactions with Daisuke Kamihara, because he's a pretty funny and weird character. But yeah, I'm definitely really enjoying a lot of the aspects of this story. And another thing about this game is that it feels very interactive. Like I said, it's not like just like a visual novel where you're just like reading a bunch of stuff with like no input besides like the choosing your own adventure aspect of some of them. No, it actually feels like a little puzzle with every conversation that you're in, because you kind of have to navigate through it in different ways. Sometimes you have to ask people certain things to get an answer, or you could also make eye contact or look around at something, call them, to try to get their attention, to try to get more important info out of them. Like, there's really kind of like certain ways you have to approach different conversations. And they also give you like different reviews where you have to check over like information, almost like a little quiz, kind of making sure you're kind of like on top of the case, and making sure you kind of know everything that you need to know up to the point that you're at. And I'm really enjoying that as well. And sometimes the protagonist also gets into little situations, like being stuck at the bus stop and different things like that. So you have to find ways of solving whatever issue you're having. So I think that's also a pretty cool aspect of this game. Like, it really doesn't feel like you're just selecting something and reading text. You really have to think about the most logical option to continue progressing through the story. It genuinely makes this game feel immersive, because you feel like you actually are the protagonist in this story, like going through these events and everything. It's just very captivating and just really engaging overall. But yeah, I'm really enjoying Emio so far. Like, this is much better than I was expecting it to be. I was expecting it to be good, but I didn't think I would like the game this much. Like, I'm just really enjoying it, and I definitely recommend this game. Like, even if you think you're not really into these, like, text-based games, like, I think a lot of you might actually like this. Like, the story is, like, really engaging here, and I feel like it's very approachable to people who haven't played these types of games before, because it's not, like, super, like, hard or complicated. Even though it's engaging, it's not like super hard to get into. It's still like very approachable and just very interesting. Like, even though you may not be interested in this genre, like, I still think it's worth playing the demo. I think that's a reason why Nintendo could have made demos for this game. Like, because it definitely has a very good appeal to it. It's just, it's definitely a game that could actually be appealing to quite a lot of people. But I think on the surface, it just kind of seems like just another visual novel, when it's really not that at all. So I definitely recommend checking out the demo of this game, because it's really good. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Twitter if you want to. Goodbye.